Did I ever tell you how lucky you are by Dr. Zeus? When I was quite young and small for my size, I met an old man in the desert of Dries, and he sang me a song I will never forget. At least, well, I haven't forgotten it yet. He sat in a terribly prickly place, but he sang with a sweet sunny smile on his face. When you think things are bad, when you feel sour and blue, when you start to get mad, you should do what I do. Just tell yourself, Ducky, you're really quite lucky. Some people are much more, oh, ever so much more, oh, much more unlucky than you. Be glad you don't work on Bunglebung Bridge, for they're building across Booba Bay at Bum Ridge. It's a troublesome world. All the people who are in it are troubled with troubles almost every minute. You ought to be thankful a whole heaping lot for the places and people you're lucky you're not. Just suppose, for example, you lived in Gazate and got caught in that traffic on Zate Highway 8. Or suppose, for instance, you lived in Gazare with your bedroom up here and your bathroom up there. Just suppose you were poor Herbie Hart, who has taken his thromdibulator apart. He will never get it together, I'm sure. He will never know if the gick on the gore fits into the scrux or the snucks or the snore. Yes, Ducky, you're lucky you're not Herbie Hart, who has taken his thromdibulator apart. Think they work you too hard? Think of poor Ali Sard. He has to mow grass in his uncle's backyard, and it's quite quick growing grass, and it grows as he mows it. The faster he mows it, the faster he grows it. And all that stingy old uncle will pay for his shoving that mower around in the hay is the piffless pay of 2 duklas a day. And Ali can't live on such piffless pay, so he has to paint flagpoles on Sundays in Grooves. How lucky you are you don't live in his shoes. And poor Mr. Bix. Every morning at 6, poor Mr. Bix has his boffin to fix. It doesn't seem fair, it doesn't seem right, but his boffin just seems to go slump every night. It slumps in a heap, sadly needing repair. Bix figures it's due to the local night air. It takes him all day unslumping it, and then the night comes back and it slumps once again. So, don't you feel blue, don't get down in the dumps, you're lucky you don't have a boffin that slumps. And while we're at it, consider the slots. The crumple-horn, web-footed, green-bitted slots, whose tail is entailed with unsolvable knots. If he isn't much worse off than you, I'll eat my umbrella. That's what I'll do. And you're lucky indeed you don't ride on a camel. To ride on a camel, you must sit on a whammel. A whammel, you know, is sort of a saddle, held on by a button that's more of a faddle. And boy, if your old whammel faddle gets loose, I'm telling you, Ducky, you're gone like a goose. And poor Mr. Potter, T-crosser, I-dotter. He has to cross T's and dot I's on an I and T factory out in Van Nuys. Oh, the jobs people work at out west near Horch Hatch. There's a Horcher bee watcher. His job is to keep both his eyes on the lazy town bee. A bee that is watched will work harder, you see. Well, he watched, but in spite of his watch, the bee didn't work any harder. Not much. Then somebody said, oh, our old bee-watching man just isn't bee-watching as hard as he can. He ought to be watched by another Horcher. The thing we need is a bee-watcher. Well, the bee-watcher watched the bee-watcher. He didn't watch well, so another Horcher had to come in as a watcher. And today all the Horchers who live in Horch are watching on watching the watcher who's watching that bee. You're not a Horch watcher, you're lucky, you see. And how fortunate you're not Professor DeBreeze, who has spent the last 32 years, if you please, trying to teach Irish ducks how to read Givanese. And think of the poor, puffing Pooglehorn players who have to parade down the Pooglehorn stairs every morning to wake up the Prince of Pooboken. It's awful how often their poogles get broken. Oh, and just suppose you were poor Harry Haddo. Try as he will, he can't make any shadow. He thinks that perhaps something's gone wrong with his giz, and I think that by golly there probably is. And the brothers Bazoo, the poor brothers Bazoo, suppose your hair grew like their hairs happened to do. You think you're unlucky? I'm telling you, Ducky, that some people are ever so much more unlucky than you. And suppose that you lived in the forest in France, with the average young person just doesn't a chance to escape from the perilous pants-eating plants. But your pants are safe, you're a fortunate guy, and you ought to be shouting, how lucky am I? And speaking of plants, you should be greatly gladish that you're not Farmer Falkenberg's 17th radish. You're so lucky. You're not Gucky Gown, who lives by himself 90 miles out of town in the ruins of Ronk. Ronk is rather run down. And you're so lucky you're not a left sock left behind in the caverns of Croc. Thank goodness for all of the things that you're not. Thank goodness you're not something someone forgot and left all alone in some punkerish place like a rusty tin coat hanging in space. That's why I say, Ducky, you don't grumble, don't stew. Oh, ever. Some critters are much more. Oh, ever so muchly much more unlucky than you.